Good day, ladies and gentlemen. We're here at South O'Brien High School. We're going to visit with Superintendent Wade Riley. We will be discussing the details of the proposed bond issue to improve the facilities of South O'Brien School District. Good morning, Mr. Riley.
Good morning. How are you, Mary?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing wonderful.
Good, good. Why don't we start with talking about the bond issue? When?
Okay, so what we have proposed is a March 7th vote, and basically the scope of the project is going to be primarily at our Paulina site. And in this, we are hoping to put on a new ag and industrial arts wing, and then a new high school office suite, and then we're also looking at an auxiliary gymnasium and a community fitness center. And then we're also looking at adding a science wing in the footprint of the existing 1925 building. Within that, also, we're looking at renovating a few different spaces, some classrooms, some locker rooms, and then also the renovation of North Campus, where that would then house a central office, our alternative program, and then just some storage, and then also a district-wide boardroom. And then at our Primgar site, we are looking at changing that gymnasium into our fine arts theater, because if in this proposed plan, if we take down the 1925 building, we no longer have a stage for dinner theater. And it was a board's goal to not have to cut any programming, so that's why we decided to make that decision up to redo Primgar stage into a fine arts theater.
Okay, thank you. That's a great overview.
Yes.
Now, it's been said that the school district is going to put some money of its own into this project. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so the school district, the board has decided to allocate $1.5 million in upfront cost to this bond issue, partly because we wanted to keep the tax levy rate at the 270, and with the scope of this project being so large, we would probably be going over that 270 levy rate, so the board wanted to make sure that we were keeping tax rates lower for our constituents in our community, and that's why they're putting in that upfront cost of the 1.5 million. And also just adding, putting that money up front really knocks off a ton of interest right from the get-go off the course of this entire bond.
Okay, so what is that 1.5 million going to be spent on?
1.5 million is going to be spent on part of the projects. So
Do you know which ones?
I don't know specifically which ones. I know I would guess probably one of the first couple projects that we would do. This project is large in scale, as I'm sure you can see through our pamphlet. So this will have to be done in phases. So the first phase would probably occur on the west side. So I'm guessing most of that 1.5 would be to fulfilling some of the costs of the west side construction. And that would be like the parking lot, the community fitness center, you had the auxiliary gym, the industrial arts, all that entire southwest side and west side.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So you touched a little bit on the phases, and that question's been asked a lot. How are they going to do all that, and how long is it going to take? So, assuming the bond is successful, can you give us an idea of the start? You just talked about the west side and the parking.
Yep.
Is that football field? Is that current parking?
Yep. So if the bond is successful in March, typically we would start on the west side. One of the very first things within the phase is that we would need to pave the football parking lot, because our students are going to lose their student parking lot on our facility. So that would be one of the first things. And then we're also trying to do that in conjunction with the south side paving as well, kind of how that new outlook's going to look, of changing that the flow of the traffic, and because now south side would become the front of our building. So we want to make sure that that is adequate. And when you bring in a company, you want to try to do multiple projects that they can do at the same time, because that is a cheaper route for the school district instead of having to bring them in at a later time. When you do a project of this scope, typically they want to start on areas that are new construction first. So that side of our facility is newer. Those are the 2006. So they would start over there. And then that also creates the least amount of disruptions of the education to start with. As it's new, we're not having to renovate or do anything. So that would just be the added on right there. So that would be our first phase. It all kind of depends on the design phase. Okay, because initially our architect is telling me 6 to 8 months. That's how long the design phase, the real heavy lifting begins when if this thing passes.
Okay.
The designing and putting everything in place, and getting things in order, for the construction to occur. So, they're talking a long term of, I've heard anywhere from 30 to 36 months of an entire completion of this project.
Okay.
Now that is, being generous on the entire scope, but there are multiple phases that need to occur. This needs to happen, then this needs to happen, and so on and so forth. It's kind of like a domino effect. Okay. So that's kind of the phases. We are kind of uncertain of how that's all going to be played out, but one of the priorities that we had asked the architect is, we do not want education to be disrupted. And he assured me that there were enough different phases in this that education would not be impacted through the process of this construction.
Okay. So first is making sure that there's places for the students to park their vehicles. And the next then will be to organize so that they can do that, and then begin the transformation to having the south side be the main entrance of the of the junior high school facility.
Absolutely.
Okay. I'd also heard in one of the smaller meetings that the bond issue is going out in 2 parts. Can you help me understand that?
So the reason why, from Piper Sandler, the reason why it's going out in 2 parts is just because of the duration of this project. It's going to be in multiple years of when this bond would take place, and then when things are ready to go. So he's planning on it as being a 2 series is what he's calling it, because of the scope of the duration of the bond, and selling them at different times. Basically, that's just recommendation from Piper Sandler on basically other plans that they've done as well, that typically when you do it at a project of this magnitude, they typically break it up into 2 series because of its different fiscal years and so on and so forth.
It probably keeps interest rates a little lower too.
Yeah, we're hoping.
You aren't paying interest on something you haven't used yet.
Correct, yep.
Okay. So you talked briefly about the $2.70 levy. And that's the money that the school district will raise to repay those bonds. Can you explain for us how that affects property owners? And then there's also a difference with agriculture land.
Yes, yeah. So the 270 is what the levy rate is going to be for the general obligation bond vote in March 7th. So what we are looking at as if you have a $100,000 assessed value home, we're looking at a monthly impact of about $8.61. We did do a little study from the county, primarily in our district, and actually the average assessed home in our towns of South O'Brien is around $76,000 is actually the average assessed home value. So I mean, you're talking around $5, give or take, there, in there. That is an investment, but to do a $26 million project, that's one less trip to Casey's, in a month, or one less, that's less than a Netflix subscription, So we feel like, and the board definitely feels like this is a pretty good rate for our constituents of our community. And then if you're an agricultural owner, we're looking at an in-tax impact of about $3.34 per acre per year. Agriculture likes to base it off of a yearly impact, and as a household, typically we like to work on a monthly. So that's kind of the breakdown that we did, or that's around 27 cents per month if you wanted to do the monthly impact for agriculture.
Okay. Okay. Let's start talking about some of the specifics of the project.
Okay.
So you're taking some parking away, you're adding some parking in different spaces. Can you give us an idea of what the net gain or loss on that is going to be?
Yeah, so we're actually looking at a net gain throughout the whole, that was one of the things that we had talked about. Now it's tough to give you a specific number because, depending upon who's parking vehicles at the football and track stadium, depends on how many vehicles you can get in there. Mm-hmm. But actually paved spaces, we are going to have a net gain of probably over 45 as a whole. We are looking at a total of around 407 paved parking spots throughout this project. That's also using a lot of our existing parking and maybe even rezoning them so that we are a little more efficient with parking those. We do have a lot of side parking throughout the perimeter of this facility. So using those spaces along with the change of what the south is going to look like, the south end, where that now is going to be coming the front side of our school, and then the addition of the football parking lot. The football parking lot is looking like about almost 150 spots, paved parking spots is what that's going to be, what that will be. If you've been to any of our activities, that can be kind of tight sometimes, and sometimes very unorganized to get in and out. So we are looking at a two-way, multiple layers of parking to create a little bit more efficiency with multiple exits, so that it's not we're all exiting out of one side and it's just kind of turns into a mess. You're right.
Yeah.
And then also on the east side of the facility, where we're proposing the new science wing, we are looking at adding a little parking on that side as well, and primarily for some staff parking to park on that side to have closer proximity to maybe where their classrooms would be located in the building.
Okay, so it looks like that was really addressed.
Yes, that was addressed. When we talked as a board, one thing that they really wanted to hit on was our students need a place to park. We can't fill up these city streets, in this project. So that's one of the first things that has to be accomplished in this project is providing parking for anybody that's coming to games, for our students especially, to get them off the streets, and that's a safety thing as well.
Yeah. So the parking will be literally across the street over at the football field.
Correct. It will be across the street, and I am trying to work with the city a little bit on getting some changes on those the crosswalks to make them more visible. Okay. We want our students to be safe when they cross the streets, and that's something that has been a big push by me, is that I feel like they need to be more noticeable. And I know that the street that they're going to be crossing is not heavily, not a lot of traffic there, but still we got to make sure people are safe. So, that could be what Orange City has, those beacon flashing things when kids walk across so that it's noticeable, or, having the crosswalks. I believe they're called continental crosswalks, where they are more of the blocks instead of just one horizontal line. They're more distinguished from a distance.
So safety has also been in the forefront of your thinking.
Absolutely.
As you create these appropriate facilities.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, great. So we talked briefly about the main entrance to the building getting moved from north to south. And you talked about an high school administrative suite. Did I use the right terminology?
Yep.
Okay. Tell us what you mean by the suite, what that's going to do, who's going to be there. Yeah.
So what we are hoping to accomplish in this new high school administrative suite is, first off, to provide our office staff more space. If you've been in our high school office right now, it's pretty tight in there. There are some walls that create limited space opportunities, and So right now we have around 760 square feet that we use for our current high school office. This would move it up to almost 3,600 square feet. But in this, we would have everything in one location, which we feel is important. So you would have your high school office in there, your high school principal office. You would have your reception area in there for your secretaries, a waiting area. You would have your nurses station in there. We would also have our records room, and then you would also have an in-school suspension area, and then you would have a restroom that would be in connection with the nurses station. And then also with that, we would be adding a secure vestibule. A secure vestibule is something that's very important to the school district to continue to monitor the safety of our students. So if you're unfamiliar with what a secure vestibule is, it is a two-buzzer system where they are entered into the high school office before they would have access to the rest of the facility. That has been something that was very important to our school board, and we do not currently offer this at our current high school office. In today's world, we need to know who's in and out of our buildings, and to have them during school hours to get buzzed in twice, and then they would enter into the office, sign in, and then they would have access to the rest of the facility, so that it's almost a three-stop approach before they would have access. That's just another secure, and that's just the new code of what the recommendation is. For if you're doing new construction, that's the recommendation, that we have this secure vestibule for the safety of our students. And that would all be included on the south side of our facility. It's definitely a lot larger than what we currently have, but the needs of our students are greater now with mental health issues that are occurring, confidentiality. So we'd also, in this project, there would be a couple conference rooms where that they could go behind closed doors and get the services that they need without being seen, or we want to create that confidentiality for our students, especially if they're receiving those services from an outside service.
Okay. You listed off several of the departments that are going to be housed in this suite. Currently, you have, I think I'm going to use the right new lingo, the high school counselor.
Yes.
Was she also?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. She is also in there just to create that confidentiality. Yep. So the school counselor would be in that space as well.
Okay.
There was talk at one time of maybe trying to move her to a separate location, but then when we started having conversations with them, when we had the staff input, she really recommended that she would be in that counselor area, in the office area as well. So she will also have an office in there as well.
Okay. Okay, great. So that sounds like you kind of looked at like type necessary facilities clustered,
correct,
accessibly
yep,
to each other. Okay. You mentioned some classroom and locker room work.
Yes. So some of the renovations that this plan is going to encompass would be a renovation of our boys' locker rooms. Okay. The girls had their locker rooms renovated in 2006, and our boys' locker rooms are in dire need of some significant upgrades. The utilization of this space isn't the best. It's a long, narrow space is what they currently have. So I think getting somebody in there to provide some accessibility, functionality of how that space could be better utilized is going to be important. In that, having secure benches into the ground, lockers that can house their materials, that they can lock, and that they don't have doors ripped off of them like we currently have. Oh. And then just updating the toilet fixtures and just the showering fixtures as well, and then providing privacy. We have really noticed that the privacy of students needs to continue to happen. It's not like when we all went to school, there was the pole and there you went. So now you provided like a dividers and curtains, and then it gives that a little bit more privacy in that area. So that would also need to be included in this plan. And then a non-slippery floor. What we currently have is a floor that is very slick when it gets wet, and that is a hazard for our students as well. And then what we also currently have is the floor has basically started to chip, and that's also a problematic for our students to injure themselves.
Bacteria growth?
Yeah, lots of problems in that area.
Okay.
And then also, looking at some changes of our classrooms, we would look at renovating the existing high school office into a classroom. So that would entail taking down some walls and, creating putting up some block walls in there as well, because there is some windows in that office right now. We don't want that as a classroom, obviously, if that's going to be the case. So we'd do some work in there, and then the room next to it is currently serving as our nurses station. We moved the nurses station down there due to COVID, just to provide more space for kids in case somebody did have that COVID. So that would also be transformed back into a classroom. It was used as a computer lab, but we would move that as a classroom. So right now, we are kind of leaning towards maybe moving down the entire math department down there. And the idea behind that is that we feel like in that west end, there needs to be some more classes down there. That's a really nice area of our school, and we are seeing them pushing a lot of kids into that south wing, and we want to utilize that space better, and it also creates better flow of the building. So changing that, renovating that would also be encompassed in this project, those two areas. And then the existing weight room would also be renovated into some storage and some offices, primarily for our technology department, athletic department, and just some additional storage in there as well. When we talked to the staff, it was they really thought it was important that storage was a part of this plan.
Okay.
Because if the 1925 building were to come down, we do lose a lot of storage for many of the programming that we do have. So that was something that we brought to the school board, and they thought that was imperative that we put that into the plan so that there was adequate amount of space for storage.
Okay. Did the engineers or architects provide you with perhaps an isolated cost on either of these two projects so far?
Right now, I do have an estimated cost. I'm not positive. I'm guessing it'd be around the $400,000 for the classrooms, and then the locker rooms would definitely be much more. The locker rooms itself, the projected cost is about $1.25 million, and that would be the junior high locker room and the high school locker room. So both locker rooms, updating fixtures, all that amenities that it would need in the locker room space.
Well, when you're talking plumbing, you're always going to be looking at bigger dollars.
Yeah, so that's a rough estimate at this point, was the 1.25 for the locker room project, and then he kind of basically told us about, for the renovation of the classrooms, could be anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 a piece to get everything to where they need to be.
Okay, and what about the administrative office suite on the south?
Yep. So the office suite, we're looking at about that whole space being about $1.2 million. That's kind of the high end that they gave us, and in today's markets, the unpredictability of what that looks like. So what I've provided you guys today with the cost of some of these things is the higher end.
Okay.
Just to cover our bases, because we don't know what they will come in at, and we're hoping that they come in less than that, but we don't know.
It's always nice to get a good surprise.
It is.
On
Yeah,
these?
it's right.
And usually it's, we didn't know this part of the project was going to be needed.
Correct.
And it just added
Absolutely.
$400,000. So.
Absolutely.
And there is contingencies built into this.
Yeah, so when the architect came together, the board had put in some contingencies because of the unpredictability of what we don't know. We don't know some of these things. So depending upon what the bids come in at and how many people bid is also another thing. There was some contingencies that were put into this plan so that we can accomplish this entire project. That's our hope. We want to provide this to our community.
Sure. It's huge. It's certainly going to improve the facilities.
Oh, yeah.
Make at least parts of the school day a little bit more pleasant for the students. And
Yes, absolutely.
They say that makes learning more effective.
Absolutely. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, let's talk about the science wing, which is over on the east side of the building and toward the north corner. Is that?
Yep. So it'd be on the northeast corner is kind of where it would be. So currently the 1925 building kind of sits as the knuckle of this facility. If you think of it as the connection between the west wing and the south wing. That basically is the connection point of those two facilities. So with the demolition of the 1925 building in this plan, in its place we are looking at putting what we're calling a science wing.
Okay.
Within this science wing, this will also have an elevator, which is much needed to the accessibility of this building. We currently have like a stair stepper that's currently on up one of the side of stairs. That's not really in regulation anymore because it really closes down the width of that staircase, and it's really tough for kids to transition between classes. So providing our facility with an elevator would make a world of difference for any student who was in a wheelchair or anybody that was unable to, if they broke their leg or something. We have those all the time where they're, maybe they're on crutches and it's tough for them to get up the stairs. So having that accessibility would be great. So that's part of this plan. And then also a part of this science wing is what is considered a science collaboration area. And they call it science collaboration, but what I feel like is it's a junior high school collaboration area. People can rent that space, and they could do different projects in a bigger area than what they are provided within their classroom. So there's like little breakout rooms where they can work together as teams in collaboration, and then it's also kind of a multi-purpose area. So like if there was a project that you needed to do and you didn't need a gym, you could go to this area and have your entire class and do some of these projects. Right now we use the East Gym for a lot of these different projects, and it just seems like we needed to provide that. So when the board heard that, that was an area that they rent out, we wanted to provide that in the scope of this project. So I feel like it's misrepresented on some of those things where it says science collaboration area. It would be used by all content areas. I just want to make sure that's known. And then also in this project, we would move our boiler system to grade level. We currently have an old boiler system that's below ground, which has definitely served its life expectancy. So we would move that above ground, and then it would create a new system throughout for the HVAC component that we have here at the facility. And then also on this science wing is now the science classroom, where it would be a much bigger classroom than what we currently offer, and then it also have like a lab area. It would also serve as an area where the students would have opportunities to do different projects, much bigger space, not so cramped together. There would also have a demonstration table, because right now, if our current spot that we have, it is just kind of real tight in there. It's really tough to show kids how to do a lab without having to go to each one. And, they're doing it right, but they're way on the left-hand side.
Okay. Let me ask you here. When you refer to that, are you talking about the science area in the 1925 building?
Correct. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. That's what I'm referring to. The other science area we'll get to in a second.
Okay.
That's working well for us right now.
Great.
So yeah, in that, creating a bigger space for those classes so we can provide some different features in that class. That's more of your biology, earth science courses. So there needs to be some collaboration and work in those classrooms that they can work together. This is also going to create our science to all be close together. So with this being the knuckle, this would be connected right to where our current chemistry class is, the new one that we just redid in 2006. So close proximity now creates greater collaboration amongst the science department. We also have our junior high science class, which would be really close, would be in our old boardroom that we used to have that was the vocal classroom for a long time here. Yeah. So if you think of the proximity of where all this would be, all three of them would now be right clustered together, which creates a lot of unique and fun opportunities for collaboration amongst the classes.
So I want to go back a little bit. You were talking about the constituencies can rent this multi-use space that's planned to be built as part of what's being referred to as the science wing over here on the northeast corner of the facility where the 1925 building still exists. When you say rent that out, are you talking about classes, or are you talking about the general public, or?
No, so the classes can use that space.
Okay.
Yeah, the classes would be able to use those spaces. So like the math class, if they were doing a project if they were doing something that they needed bigger than their classroom, they could go to this area. Or if they're going to solve a problem, people could sign up and use this space. Because right now what we currently have is, hey, I'm going to use the East Gym for Tuesday, Thursday, and Monday. Everyone knows, and I'm going to use it periods 4, 6, and 8. They would be able to use that same area to provide that learning space for our students. So it's beyond the scope of the walls of their classroom.
So that's an in-house thing?
Correct,
A school
yes.
thing? Okay.
Yep.
Any idea on the cost of that?
Yeah, so the cost of that wing is, and I'm giving you high numbers right now, is about the $3.6 million range. Science equipment and the classroom materials are more expensive, and then also that also includes some of the getting things to grade, the elevator, so on and so forth. So yeah, that's around the $3.6 million.
An elevator by itself is probably a big chunk of that.
That's a large chunk of it.
Yeah. Well, it's needed, and you don't want the school getting dinged or being.
Well, and we don't want to have to change. I've heard horror stories of schools that don't have that, then they change the whole structure of their school. They have to move classrooms to accommodate, and I feel like in today's society we need to be able to provide these opportunities for our kids in the same spot, because that's tough for a teacher to have to move their classroom with all the stuff that they have in there.
Right.
And so it just creates kind of some bad, it's just not good for our staff to have to move. So I think having this, everybody could be where they're at, and we are prepared for students that need those special services to get to where they need to.
Okay, so we're going to jump down to the diagonally opposite part of the building, to the industrial arts FFA. So this is south and west sides of the facility. Yep. These are all new construction, right?
Correct. This would be all new construction on the southwest side. Basically where the carport is what we call that entrance on the south side. That would move out south, and that would now house our administrative office suite for the junior high school. And then just adjacent to that, to the west, would then be a shop class. That we would have that as our woods class. There would be a lab there, and then there would also be a classroom in there, and then on the opposite side of that classroom would be our welding class. That area is very large. We're looking at a total of that entire area, including the ag, which I'll get to in a second, of around 15,000 square feet, which is almost two and a half times bigger than what we currently offer our students. And I know there's been a lot of talk that, we want to do different projects within the industrial arts and the agricultural, but we just don't have the space. This would provide our students the space to do some of those really neat problems. And it would also have overhead doors, one for the shop, one for the metal shop, and I just think the flexibility in the projects that they could do are endless at this point. It'd be really, really neat to see. And then getting to the ag component, the ag classroom would be all by itself. It would not be a shared space with the industrial arts like it currently is. They would have their own classroom, and then they would also have, on the south side, they would have a greenhouse. So that would sit at the very southwest corner of the facility now. So kind of where the junior high practice and where the marching band practices, it would be on the southwest corner of that, pretty close to that area, and that would house the greenhouse. Much larger greenhouse than what we currently offer our students, and it would be connected. The big thing with this, again, is safety of our students, and to have our students leave every class period to go take an industrial arts or an agricultural class is a risk that our students should not have to take. Since I've been here, we've had students almost get hit by cars. We've had them, they have to face the elements of the outside weather, the extreme colds, the windy conditions that we seem to have on a weekly basis, extreme temperatures, rain, precipitation, everything. It would now be connected. And that was a huge thing for us, that we wanted to provide that safety and just the connection of this facility onto our main campus, into the main building here. So the safety of that would provide our students to not have to leave the building at all, which in today's society we really need to make sure that we're taking proactive measures to provide as much safety as we can for our students. And we have a lot of students that take these courses. I mean, sometimes we can't get them all in their schedules because they want to take them, and and it fits our community. We have an agricultural community. We have some blue collar positions that they could learn some of these skill sets in these classes, and then maybe get right into a position here that's a good career. So we are looking at some of that career pathway learning as well. Like, how can we partner with some community businesses to provide the skill sets that they're looking for, so that our students can then just take a job and hopefully want to continue to live in our district, because that is important to us, that we want to keep our young people here so we can keep people in the seats here at our school district, and that's important to us. We have a great agricultural community. There's all sorts of learning opportunities around here, and to provide this to our students in the 21st century learning environment would be a great asset to our entire community.
Yeah, it really would, and I know right now especially employers are begging just for applicants, let alone a high-quality workforce.
Absolutely.
And it is a difficult situation for everybody.
Absolutely.
So having students being ready, even if it's while they're in school, obtaining skills through the school process, and then maybe furthering them into some other kinds of performances, the simple things like attendance, communication, work well with your business, your work partners, some of those things in the real world on a part-time basis. I think there's some employers around here that really value that, especially out of these particular kinds of industries and tools. The greenhouse is interesting. I guess I wasn't even aware that South O'Brien had one.
Yes, we currently, the students also have to go out of the building again to access that facility, but we do have a little greenhouse where they, when they do some of their sales and things for the plants, we do have a small greenhouse, but this would be able to provide us ample amount of space so that we could maybe expand on something with the greenhouse and, add to the curriculum that would be important for our students to understand the growth process of some of these plants and things along those lines.
Well, maybe you can go across the building and get some biology students in
there we go. That's right.
Okay, and we talked about the cost on that, didn't we?
No. So the estimated cost of that project, about $5 million is the cost of. Like I said, I'm giving you guys all the high numbers at this point, because when the bidding process comes, we don't know what it's going to come in at. So I'm trying to be proactive on shooting high, and we can celebrate if it comes in lower.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that whole process would be about $5 million is what that would cost.
Does that include some of these specialty tools, which aren't cheap?
No, that would actually be different.
Oh, okay.
We will use some of the things from there. They have a lot of nice equipment in there. We just don't have the adequate space. We would use that, but we'd also have to add some new stuff to continue to fill that area. And then, just the safety of how that building is laid out, putting things on walls instead of right in the middle, that's a safety concern. So that would have access wall space would be great for these areas as well.
Yeah. So on the welding, is that the manual learn how to do it yourself, or is there going to be some robotics involved? Do you know?
Yeah, I think we would try to expand on that area. Now that we would have the space, we would try to expand and see what we can continue to do to bring different things into that area. I know coding has been a huge thing, and it'd be great if we could expand on those things to provide that for our students to do some of these things. Code something that you made to do what you asked it to do. That would be fantastic. So those are all opportunities that we can expand on. like I said, we're just in the infancy stages of what can this curriculum look like, and move forward from there.
It's sounding like it's pretty well plotted in terms of where the board, and I think there's been a lot of faculty input too, in where you want to take whatever these specific things are.
Yeah, so, Mr. Cum has been very instrumental in providing, space that he needs to run a successful industrial arts ag classroom. And then, we would like to see at some point that we could hire an industrial arts teacher and then just let one teacher take both content areas so that we can continue to expand those areas and provide our students a better skill set. Because if you're able to offer 7 industrial arts classes in a day compared to 2 or 3, that provides our kids more skills that they would gain from that knowledge of taking those courses. And then, capitalizing on our agricultural classes as well. If I was able to offer 7 of those, we could fill those up. I mean, that'd be a great opportunity for us, instead of sometimes I feel like we don't have enough course offerings, that sometimes students are pigeonholed into having to take certain things that maybe they wouldn't like, and they would like to expand, and providing that opportunity to have 2 different areas of more classes and electives to take provides more skill sets for our students.
Yep, I need electives, and that's all I got to choose from. Yeah, I'm glad that's not me in that position.
Yes.
Okay, so the community fitness center, we have a weight room that kind of sort of maybe got used a little bit by the public, but it looks like you guys are going to take that into a next level circumstance. Right along, well, let's just stay with the community fitness center.
Okay.
Tell us what the
Yeah, so the proposed plan of I'm going to change the name of this a little bit. The South O'Brien Community Fitness Center. We want this to be a fitness center for all area towns to have access to exercise equipment where they could come in and utilize this space. Just talking to many people throughout the communities, it seems like an area that's lacking. We have people that drive to Sheldon, Spencer, Cherokee to get to areas that have exercise equipment that they feel like they can go to. We have some small spots where people can go throughout the community, which is fantastic. But this would just provide people an opportunity to try to stay in our district. And so this proposed plan is looking at about a 4,600 square foot area. And that includes storage and just the overall weight room. And then also within that, there would be some restrooms within that space. And then there would be an office, because this is also going to serve as our high school, junior high and high school weight room class that we have. And just asking many neighboring districts in northwest Iowa, I did find about 7 or 8 other school districts that have this available to their communities, and a lot of good ideas out there of how to continue to maintain this area and to keep it operational, which I feel is important, because why reinvent the wheel when people have already been through the process? So there are quite a few in just our area that have this opportunity for their communities, and we feel like this would be a nice opportunity for our communities as well to utilize the space, and just to continue to partner with the school district a little bit, because we are here to serve the community, and I want people to realize that's what we're here for.
This would be a welcoming way, I think,
Yeah.
at least for a certain segment of the folks, whether it's major exercise,
Yep.
fitness type stuff, or it's just some maintenance, or maybe some recovery.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, lots of opportunities. So you mentioned weights. So are you talking about a real in-depth workout gym kind of stuff, or just a few select tools?
Mary, we have a lot of nice equipment in our current weight room, but the equipment that we have now, we've outgrown that space. I know the Booster Club has donated a lot of money to providing us some equipment, and we are just jam-packed in there, which again creates a safety concern. And to provide more of an adequate, spacious area would cut down on some of the safety risks that we take on a daily basis, because we do have Throughout the course of the day, we do offer 4 weightlifting periods throughout the day,
Okay.
and those classes are full.
Okay.
We've had to cap those classes for the safety of those students to about 20. And we got kids that want to take those classes, which is, it's great. But, it just seems like we want to be able to not limit students on what they can and can't take. And sometimes that happens, I get that, but to have to limit it, it would be something that we feel like we can do better. And then the other thing that's missing out of that entire space is aerobic machines. So like your ellipticals and your treadmills and exercise bikes. In our current space, we do not have enough of those. So that would also be included in this. But to go back to your original question, we would provide a lot of the free weights that we have with the racks, but then the expansion of those aerobic machines, exercise balls, just to do it safely, but all that would be included into the scope of what this South O'Brien Fitness Center would look like.
I was just going to ask a question about the aerobic tools as well. So
Yes.
are those, the cost of, is that new construction or is that remodeling what exists?
So this would be all new construction.
Okay.
And this would be adding on to the west side of our facility. So if you know where our students enter the building every day, it would be right in that area is kind of where the plan would be, where this would be. And then this would have its own entrance. So, and it also it would be able to be locked down so that people, and if they become a member or want to utilize this space, they would not have access to the rest of the facility. So there are a lot of school districts around have done this recently, and they have provided us some ideas on how we can just keep people in that area. So there would be an exterior entrance, and then they would use their fob and get in, and then have access to that weight room or fitness center.
Okay, great. And so that construction cost?
So that construction cost is, we're looking at about this, and with the auxiliary gym, which we're probably getting to next, that whole space alone is around $6.3 million.
And that includes the gym?
That includes the gymnasium as well, because when they bid that process, they kind of just put it all into one. They didn't really break it down specifically for what each one would cost. The thing with this is both of these areas cover a lot of square feet.
Yeah.
So I think you're paying the per square feet. That's why that cost gets as high as it does so quickly.
Okay, does that include any of the furnishings, the equipment or anything?
No, so there is money set aside for the furnishings, but that was not included into this initial bid that we had received.
Okay. And then, like you said, let's go talk about the auxiliary gym.
Yep, the auxiliary gym, big gym, 2 large cross courts. It would also have a main court. We would also have bleachers on one side so that we could house our junior high games there. This could also be an area where we could have JV games. Sometimes we have to choose, excuse me, what games are we going to play that evening. Typically we only like to play 3 games because we really don't have 2 gyms to be able to play. But the main primary focus is this would house our junior high athletics. So it would stop us from having to transport our junior high kids who attend school in Paulina to have to go to Primgar and practice and play all their games. It'd basically keep the students here on site throughout the course of the day and along with their extracurriculars at the end of the day. We would also utilize this space for PE classes. Our current competition gym, we call it the West Gym, that takes a pretty good beating on a regular basis, and that's where we house all of our competitions for our varsity events. So it would be nice if we were able to utilize this bigger area for some of our classes to maybe cut down on the wear and tear on that West Gym so that we can keep it looking nice for our student athletes and just for those competitions that we have in there.
What kind of special features are included in that?
Yeah, so we haven't really bogged down on what specifically is going to be in there. We just utilize the space, but like a PA system will be in there so we can use it for assemblies. I mean, it's going to be a large area, but Not a lot of seating, because initially we were thinking right now we've talked anywhere from about 4 to 5 rows of bleachers, which
Okay.
is what you typically see in an auxiliary gym. So there's not a ton of seating in there, but it's just a large, wide open space. It will have a drop-down curtain.
Okay.
That's one of the things that I know we've talked about that we'd like to see so that we can have multiple practices going on in there without cutting down on our space. So that would be in there, and it would also have a scoreboard, because if we're going to have junior high competition in there, we're going to need that to keep score and to keep things rolling there. So, and then it will be a nice thing for our community to be able to rent out that space, because gym space tends to be something that is heavily wanted on a pretty regular basis once the winter season hits. And I feel like providing this as, basically everyone's saying, you have one gym we would lose here with the East Gym here, but we'd be gaining quite a large space. You're actually gaining an extra gym for the district, because the gym up in Primgar is still going to be able to be used for some of these athletics, but this is going to provide us another gym that people could use, and I just think it'll really solve some of the issues that we face on a yearly basis.
Like tournaments and things.
Tournaments would be fantastic. We could run 3 games at a time, which would be great for everybody to, speed up the process of what that looks like, and also just how that whole tournament would function. It'd be a lot quicker.
Yeah. Which is always a benefit.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. So the cost of that is included in the 6.3.
Yeah, so just
with
the
facility.
just so that you're kind of aware of the square footage, that would be about a 16,000 square foot gym. That includes storage and things like that, and also within that there would also be some changing rooms that I wanted to talk about. So in junior high, we have found out that a full-blown locker room is typically not needed, just throughout the studies of some of the recent gymnasiums that they put up. So a changing room where opposing teams could go, they would have a locker room, and there would be a marker board, and they would be able to change their clothes. It would have a toilet in there, just would not have the showers that they would shower after the competition. So typically the junior high kids, we're not seeing them shower at the facility. They would go with their parents and then take care of the business where at home. So that would be included in the scope of this gymnasium as well. And then kind of in conjunction with that, the South O'Brien Fitness Center.
Okay.
Kind of all in that same area.
Okay. That's the first I've heard of that. That's interesting.
Yeah.
And it's good to know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Especially after putting a lot into the locker rooms.
Yes.
Just minimize some of that wear and tear.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Great thinking, wherever that idea came from. That's awesome. The North Campus. So that's currently where Industrial Arts and Ag is located.
Yes. So the idea with using North Campus as the central office alternative school basically boiled down to money.
Yeah.
To add that facility on as a new addition to this campus and not utilize that space didn't make a lot of sense economically. So to renovate that space was a lot more efficient, especially that building. The outside structure is fine. It does need some work, but we wanted to utilize that space. So when the board kind of talked about this and made a decision that we're going to use that as North Campus as the central office, it made more sense to renovate that space instead of add it on as new onto the junior high school main building. Also within that, the district's boardroom would be in there, and then obviously when you talk about central office, there would be the business manager's office, there would be the superintendent's office, there would be the secretary space, like reception waiting area, and then there would be a couple little rooms, maybe a conference room for added on to the superintendent's wing as well there.
Okay. Do you know how many square feet we're talking about for the administrative versus the independent study?
Yeah, so it'd be about, that building over there is about 7,000 square feet, 7,000 all square feet. There's a lot of different walls in there. we would probably look at, you know, the alternative school to be around 1,000 square feet, 750 to 1,000 square feet. Since that would just be kind of a square building, rectangle building, however you want to call it, that the opportunities are kind of endless on where we want to do a scope, and that would come in that design phase of where things are. Right now, we just have recommended, but those can change. So that's kind of where we're at with that building at this point.
Okay. So I'm sure that there's going to be high quality technology installation access over there for the administrative. That's necessary.
Yep.
Will those same things for the alternative school, will they also be provided with some of these what are almost considered standard equipment anymore?
Yeah. So those rooms would all come with, you know, obviously we'd want continued great Wi-Fi coverage over there as well for central office, and then even the alternative program. But yeah, they would all come with, you know, we'd really focus on that Wi-Fi. If the room needed a smart board, that would be available to those students over there if they needed it, and just have accessibility to the internet if they needed. So yeah, it'd all be the same. It would be no differentiation between the two.
Okay. About how many students do you project utilizing that over, you know, at a time, at any given time?
So typically that can run anywhere from 7 to 12 students. Typically, if students are maybe struggling with credits, they can go over there and take a class. And sometimes we've used that area for those students that it's an opportunity to save them so they can graduate, so that we don't have them dropping out of school. But that's kind of our hope there, is to continue to utilize and provide those students an opportunity to capitalize on getting a diploma instead of a GED. And then in conjunction with that, so they basically in there, they tackle their core classes, so your math, your English and sciences and social studies, and then we have them partner with the community, and for their elective courses, for their credits, they get work credit is what they get. So they knock out those core classes, and then in conjunction with that, we ask them to get a job, and then they have to turn in those timesheets that they've worked, so that we can give them those elective credits, because otherwise they're only there half a day. And so usually in the afternoon they would go out to their employer and work for them, and that's how they would get those elective credits, so that we can reach our graduation requirements.
Okay, so then they're ready with some of the basic skills of employment, just
Absolutely.
like every student.
And in there we bring over college reps. We do all that. We want them to go be successful wherever that is. It doesn't make any difference. And then we also, we work on skills in there, like how do you go through an interview? How do you prepare? What do you do? Filling out, those tax forms that are, when you get a job, sometimes that can be a tasking thing for some of our students. So, we kind of walk them through that process and just all those things, so they're prepared to be ready to hit the ground running, and whatever their college and career future exists, that's what we're ready to prepare them for.
So what's the instruction over there? Is there one teacher that does everything, or? So
right now we utilize one certified instructor, and they basically help the students throughout their day-to-day operations of the classroom. And then we also have a couple paras that would provide support if they needed. So like if there was a special ed student that was over there and needed some credits, they would have to have a para if their minutes required them to do so.
Okay. And I think we finally capped out on Paulina. Anything about Paulina that we maybe not covered in what I hope the audience finds extreme depth, a genuine understanding?
Yes. I just think, I think we covered everything. It's just, it's going to be over a duration of time, and I just want people to realize that this isn't going to happen overnight if this thing passes, and it'll be a long drawn out process, so you'll see a lot of large equipment if we can get this thing to go on March 7th.
Okay, so then let's talk about the performing arts at Primgar. What prompted that? Why is that considered by your Board of Education the best decision for the district?
So we had we initially had a talk about an auditorium. An auditorium typically runs $5.5 to around $9 million for that space that we thought was not real, not used on an everyday basis. So when the board started making some decisions, they just thought 5.5 to 9 million for a space that's not going to be utilized all that often seemed a little steep. So then a couple board members, kind of said, let's continue to look, and we didn't want to go outside of our district. We wanted to keep things here. We didn't want to cut any programming, and that was kind of a board's goal. Was they didn't want any programming to be cut. So, and we also wanted to house things under our own roof. So when we started looking at some options, we saw that we have a stage over in Primgar. And when we started looking at that, it seemed more economical for us to repurpose that stage to use as our fine arts area. It seemed like it was way more cost effective, because around $600,000 is kind of the projected cost to renovate that space to use it as our fine arts, compared to the 5.5 to 9 million. Seemed to make more sense. And then the other thing that I want people to know was, yes, we explored these options, but we also wanted to keep that tax rate at the 270. We were getting to the point where if we added an auditorium, now you're looking at maybe having to jump that rate up to the 405, and then that would ask 2 bond questions. And then we just thought to keep things where we would like them to be, in comparability with some neighboring districts, this made the most sense economically. And then it also gave, do a little work in Primgar as well. We've continued to do work over there on a yearly basis. There's a lot of things that happen. So just because this is the only part that this bond is accomplishing in Primgar, doesn't mean that we're not doing other work there.
Right.
Every year we do more work there with the HVAC system, and try to continue to get that thing moving forward in the right direction. And so I don't want people to feel like we're neglecting there. And Primgar did have our last significant project that they had with the office space and the preschool classrooms and things like that. So those are just things I wanted to make sure that people knew. And the board made a very, in my opinion, a very smart decision to go this route instead of utilizing an auditorium. And everybody would love an auditorium, don't get me wrong. I mean, it would be great, but for the price tag of $9 million, then jump us up another on the taxes, didn't seem to be make the most sense economically.
Yeah. So it's a stage. It'll get new sound and lighting.
Yep.
There's talk of these newest auditorium seats here in the small gym that will go away, being relocated to the Primgar facility.
Yep.
Is there some chance that can't work?
They don't know for sure if that can't work, but we're pretty sure that it can work. They will redo all of that stage and even the platforms that the seats are on. So I don't know why it wouldn't be able to work. Okay. It would also provide, in the back there would be a little sound booth so that we could control things. Kind of the idea behind having that is, if you've ever been to Orpheum, they said that was kind of put back there in the back as well. So that was the idea of controlling everything from the back. And that would have a little lock on it so that some of our students wouldn't be able to get in there and make some fun in there. So
yeah, they are young kids after all.
Absolutely.
Okay, so is this going to be used for dinner theater, or what all?
Yeah, so like I said, the board's goal was to not have to cut any programming. So dinner theater would be something that we did not want to lose. I also think at some point we'd like to get to the point where we were providing other opportunities for our students. Would be nice to run a musical at some point. So, providing this space would give opportunities of a musical, maybe just a general play. We've talked as much as even doing a lip sync at some time, just to kind of do something unique so that we can provide some different opportunities for our students in that space. Was kind of our thought process. So that would all be available to them, and then would also be able to have some of our fine arts, like our music performances would be able to be used that if they would like. especially if you've been to an elementary music concert, it gets pretty packed in there. So this would then provide our students to be on stage, and then we would have more access to having the floor as opportunities for chairs to be up so we could house more people, because we do run an afternoon performance for our elementary. And the only reason for that is because we don't have enough space on the evening.
Okay.
So being able to provide more space on the floor, because our students currently perform on risers on the floor.
Yeah.
So putting them on the stage would get them up and out of the way, and then I think it would provide more of a richer environment for our students and our community to be able to watch those events. And also in there would be like acoustical panels, so the sound would be better, and just overall I think it would give us that auditorium feel without spending the auditorium money.
That's a great way to put it. Okay, anything else that you would like to share with the public on this multi-year, enormous project?
I think the biggest thing that I would like to say is just, get informed. There are some public meetings coming up here, and there's a lot of really good information that's presented to at those public meetings, and to find the correct information out would be important, so that you know and can make an informed decision on what you think is best for South O'Brien moving forward. So actually our next our public meeting is on February 15th at 7 p.m. and that is at the R.L. Johansson Event Center in Sutherland. And then the last one that we will have for a public meeting is March 1st, 7 p.m. at the Junior High School in Paulina here, and there will be tours beginning at 6 o'clock on those on that evening of March 1st. And then the other thing I would say is you can absentee vote. You can request an absentee through the 20th of February, and then actually early in-person voting starts February 15th. So if you are out of town on March 7th, you can do early in-person voting, and or you can wait until March 7th and go to your polling location and cast your vote. But like I said, I think the biggest thing is just get the proper information and just be informed. That's all we ask people to do, and make an informed decision on what you think is best.
Okay, and for proper information, for voting purposes, if you don't know, you can contact O'Brien County Auditor's Office at Primgar. They can tell you if you're registered, how to register, and where your voting precinct is, and or how you can vote absentee or early.
Absolutely.
And it must be done by March 7th.
Correct. March 7th is the last day.
Okay, and if somebody has questions, they can send you an email or...
Yeah, call me. Call me at my office and in Paulina, or send me an email, and I will get back to you as soon as I can, or attend a public meeting.
Would you please stand for the pledge of allegiance?
Thank you. That's our cue to stand.